The town of Farmington. Respecting history, planning the future.
I'd like to call the Town Council February 9th, 2016 meeting to order and ask John Landry to say the pledge.
Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight we have a number of proclamations to begin our meeting, and the first one is for William John Benson. Amy?
Good evening. I'm here to present a resolution in memory of the beloved Scoutmaster of BSA Troop 170, William John Benson. As you all know, Scoutmaster Benson passed away in January. I did not know him personally, although I saw him at some troop events, a family of Troop 68. But I did start asking a lot of people about him in the past couple of weeks. The words that came about were bright, humble, extraordinary work ethic, loyal, kind, and a wonderful sense of humor. Now, Scoutmaster Benson had a successful career as a businessman, but from what I'm told, his life passion was his work as the Scoutmaster. There's a recent story that I heard from a few people in Troop 68 that seems to capture that. I'm told there was a bit of a rivalry between the two groups, but a friendly rivalry. And when Troop 68 heard that he was sick, their hearts broke and they wanted to do something kind. So I was told they got a big T-shirt and everyone wrote notes wishing him well and sending their love. And two of people in Troop 68 said that towards the end of his life, you often, almost always saw him in that shirt. So it just shows you his dedication and his love for being a Scoutmaster. In his capacity as Scoutmaster, he helped hundreds, probably thousands, young boys and young men gain lifelong skills to be good citizens and leaders. You could often see him leading his troop for the Walk for Hunger, Relay for Life, MS bike tours, the National Boy Scout Jamborees, and the hundreds of projects that benefited the town of Farmington. This town, the youth of this town, and the residents were so blessed to have him, and we couldn't be more appreciative of all of his work, and there's no doubt he will be greatly missed. Before I read the resolution, I just want to read a quote that was in the obituary that seemed to sort of best give you a sense of who he was and how he lived his life. Need my glasses. The real way to happiness is by giving out happiness to other people. Try and leave this world a little better than you found it, and when your turn comes to die, you can die happy. At any rate, you have not wasted your time, but have done your best. Be prepared, as all of you know, in this way, to live happy and to die happy. Stick to your Scout promise always. Be prepared, even after you have ceased to be a boy, and God help you do it. The resolution. Now, Roger Peralt, if you could just come up so I can read and hand you the resolution. A resolution in memory of William John Benson. Whereas it is with deep regret that we note the passing of William John Benson on January 19th, 2016. And whereas William John Benson was a lifelong Boy Scout, becoming an assistant Scoutmaster in 1968, Scoutmaster in 1975 for Boy Scout Troop 32 in West Hartford, and Scoutmaster for Boy Scout Troop 170 in Unionville since the fall of 1981. Just want to note that's 35 years of being a Scoutmaster. We have our Scoutmaster over here, Doug Pelham from 68. The amount of work, this is a full-time job, and he had another full-time job. This is a huge, huge job. And to do it 35 years, I don't think I've ever heard of anyone who's ever taken on that. whereas William John Benson was an advisor with Ponquag Chapter, Order of the Arrow, as well as on the national staff for several National Boy Scout Jamborees. And whereas William John Benson was very proud to have attained the crowning achievement of Eagle Scout and of being awarded the Silver Beaver Award and the District Award of Merit, and of receiving his 55-year scouting pin in October of 2015. And whereas William John Benson's strong leadership and exemplary role model had a positive impact on countless young men by impressing upon them lifelong skills of being good citizens and to turn young men into leaders. And whereas William John Benson always maintained a focus on the public good and acted to protect the public interest over private interest while donating countless hours of time, energy, and personal commitment to better our community and enrich the lives of the residents of the town of Farmington. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Farmington Town Council extends their deepest sympathies to the many friends and family of William John Benson. We will forever remember William John Benson for his excellent work on behalf of the youth of our community and for his selfless dedication and immeasurable contributions to the town of Farmington and its residents. Dated at Farmington, Connecticut, this 9th day of February 2016, Nancy Nickerson, Chair, Farmington Town Council. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Excuse me. And on behalf of the council, we have a little present. Roger? On behalf of the council, we have a little present for you. Sorry, I should have given it to Amy. You get to choose a color, but it's a Farmington hat. And we appreciate you receiving this, taking this one tonight.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Which color? Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you all for coming tonight, all the Boy Scouts. It's really a great honor and for him and the scouting program. We really appreciate you all coming out tonight, so thank you. The next proclamation is for John McGrain. Okay, Meredith?
Good evening. I have a proclamation for John McGrain for his decade plus of service to the Water Pollution Control Authority. And although John can't be here with us tonight, he certainly still deserves to have this read, and he deserves our recognition, because as we said at the time of the facility upgrade referendum, Farmington is what it is because we're sewered, and we said that over and over again. Our economic development, our businesses, our restaurants, our schools, our medical facilities, our residences, they all function as they do because, in large part, of the efforts and dedication of the Water Pollution Control Authority members, whose work often goes unnoticed and unrecognized, and it's partly because of their good work that they are unnoticed, because things are going very well with our system. So, with that, I do want to read the proclamation that we will be getting to him. It says, whereas John McGrain has served on the Farmington Water Pollution Control Authority from 2004 to 2015, and whereas John McGrain, through his vision, leadership, and involvement in the Farmington Water Pollution Control Authority, was instrumental in providing a roadmap for the continued success of the town's infrastructure, including the upgrade of the wastewater treatment plant. And whereas John McGrain has made significant and lasting contributions in multiple ways that have fostered the well-being of the citizens of the town of Farmington, and in many instances, these contributions and efforts and their significance for the town were not widely recognized. And whereas John McGrain, without his dedication, generosity, and commitment, the quality of life within the town of Farmington would be diminished. And whereas John McGrain has always maintained a focus on the public good and acted to protect the public interest over private interests while donating countless hours of time, energy, and personal commitment to better our community and enrich the lives of the residents of the town of Farmington. Now, therefore, the Farmington Town Council hereby commends Farmington Water Pollution Control Authority member John McGrain for his excellent work on behalf of the community, and we hereby thank him for his selfless dedication and immeasurable contributions and commitment to the town of Farmington and its residents. Dated at Farmington, Connecticut, this 9th day of February, 2016, Nancy Nickerson, Chair.
Thank you, John, for all your years of service to the town on behalf of the council. Our next proclamation is for Gary Peterson. Peter.
Yep. Good evening, everyone. Glad you're all here tonight. Gary's not here tonight. They had a big party for Gary last Friday, and for a good reason. Gary has served this community as a firefighter for over 40 years in this town. He started his service as a volunteer, and then from a volunteer he became a career firefighter. He retired, and now he's back in the ranks again as a volunteer fireman. Just a quick story. Gary retired on December 31st. I think his shift ended at, we'll say, 3 or 5 o'clock. He went home and became a volunteer fireman. At 12 o'clock at night, a pretty serious accident came in. One of the first people on the truck, on the scene, I would presume, was Gary Peterson, because I heard him on the radio. So needless to say, town of Farmington's been very lucky to have Gary in this community as a volunteer fireman and as a career fireman, or past career firefighter. So on that note, I'm going to read the proclamation for Gary. Gary Peterson has served the town of Farmington as a firefighter for 41 years, starting as a volunteer firefighter at the East Farmington Volunteer Fire Department on October 1st, 1974. Whereas Gary Peterson became a career firefighter on June 18, 1984, and served honorably as a career firefighter until his retirement on December 31st, 2015. Gary Peterson is a lifelong Farmington resident who proudly held the distinction of being Badge 1 because of his seniority in the community. Whereas Gary Peterson was appointed to the Retirement Board as an IAFF Local 3103 representative from period of 2008 to 2015. Whereas Gary Peterson, without his dedication, generosity, and commitment, the quality of life within the town of Farmington would be diminished. Whereas Gary Peterson has made significant and lasting contributions in multiple ways that have fostered the well-being of the citizens of the town of Farmington. And whereas Gary Peterson has always maintained a focus on the public good and acted to protect the public interest over private interest while donating countless hours of time, energy, personal commitment to better our community and enrich the lives of the residents of the town of Farmington. Now, therefore, the Farmington Town Council hereby commends Gary Peterson for his excellent work on behalf of the community, and we hereby thank him for his selfless dedication and immeasurable contributions and commitment to the town of Farmington and its residents. The Farmington Town Council hereby extends to Gary and his wife, Catherine, the best wishes in their future endeavors. Dated at Farmington, Connecticut, this 5th day of February, 2016. Nancy Nickerson, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Yes, on Friday night at the at his dinner and party, we gave him the plaque that night and read it and said a few words, and there were a lot of people that complimented him and chatted about him. So we really appreciate all Gary's time in the town, and he's still giving of that time. So thank you, Gary. Next, we have the state legislators. Would you come to the table, please? Brian, welcome, and Mike. Nice to have you here tonight. So we know you're hard at work in Hartford, continually. But I thought first what we would do is just see if you have some, any information or can give us some idea of how things are going or the timeline, any timeline that you have as far as what we'll know as far as the budget's concerned. And then we have some specifics we wanted to ask you about different people. Oh, my goodness.
The budget books this year, they're actually thinner than they usually are. You may have heard the governor's trying to consolidate some line items and looking to try to get over a block grant for agencies that are going to have the legislature so that line by line. So we clearly said that some of the lines in here say you don't have to move no basis on but this is obviously a starting point. Colleagues in the legislature have been much longer than I have. They said we've never passed the governor's budget. So that budget will be underway. And it also explains why our senators aren't here. Meetings daily, nightly, to go through this budget, to hear from the public on different aspects of the budget. So in terms of the timeline, the only thing I can tell you is that the last day of session of the board, it's been legislative leadership and the governor have expressed a desire to pass the budget earlier than the last day of session. How much earlier we get that done, I think we'll discuss.
It would be nice if we got it done before you had to do your budget, but don't get your hopes up because that's not really realistic. And they've been talking about it for years. It ought to be the other way around, but it's not. So, which you would be, a situation where you have to estimate, and we'll try to help you estimate as best we can. But, that's the system.
Yeah, well, I would just say, and I'm sure everyone here, is if there's anything that you know as time goes on, any information you have, we'd appreciate hearing that. As little or as much as it is, but it's certainly helpful to have any information along the way. And it's a little hard now because the information that we've seen is that we're going to be actually get more funding, which is, unbelievable. And so that said, I just don't know how, we don't have an idea of how to plan with that or how that can happen if we're in the deficit we are. So that's a little bit concerning. So I don't know.
What was the indication was you're going to get more?
More in the
Well, the numbers that we're
CCM
getting
that came
from
out.
CCM and cost indicate that at least it's going to be flat, and it shows some increase in spending, but I think that's a little bit deceptive because we didn't budget to budget, we didn't receive the amount that we said we were going to get, so I don't think we're actually going to receive more, even though the numbers that are coming out show that we're going to receive more, but it's at least flat.
And does that include that 0.5%?
2.5 cap.
The sales tax?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's going to be a
yeah.
portion of
Right,
all the
yeah.
towns? Okay. Maybe that's the reason for the...
Right. It's just, I guess the question is that it's surprising, and we're questioning, should we be budgeting on a flat number, or should we be decreasing our number? I don't think it's prudent to be increasing our number, but, like I said, the way the numbers are coming out right now, it's questionable.
Okay. That's something that we will endeavor to find out.
And clearly that was the intent of the bill known as SB1 last year, which is to take a percentage of the sales tax and include that in municipalities in the hopes of the property taxes on. So I guess, we talked about this a little bit already, budget conservatively, and the hope would be that after the end of the surplus, we kind of settle in with the budget, property tax should be raised as much as the otherwise.
I guess one of the questions that we have is that, should we be assuming at this time that everything is fair game, and that's the municipal revenue too? I mean, I guess, had you have any feel of that at this point in time?
Well, the governor in the budget said, he was looking at cost of work cuts, and it was 5 3/4, but not ECS. So the rest of it, and again, that's his starting point,
Right.
not the legislative process. And so, we still got our crystal balls, peer
as Brian said, he specified that ECS aid is not going to be in that category of things that are on the table. Now, you never know what's going to happen, but that's his preference, and certainly that would be the legislature's preference. I can't think of a single legislator who would want to propose cutting ECS to any town, particularly their own town. So that's if there's one thing. But again, you don't know what's going to happen. But that's already been expressed by the governor. That's one thing that he doesn't want to touch.
Okay. John.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming out tonight, especially you, Brian, since you represent me. For those of you at home, Brian is the state rep from the 19th district, which represents a very small portion of Farmington, which I happen to live in. And thank you as well, Mike. I know you represent me as well.
You're lucky to be represented by both of them. You're half of the street.
That's we won't get into that, Brian. So I guess my question is, Farmington is unique, and you two are unique in the sense that Farmington is completely represented by Democrats, as we all know, and you both are Democrats, and the governor is a Democrat. And a lot of the times, these budget votes come down to party lying votes, as a lot of votes come down to party lying votes. And it's been, and I've just been reading things here and there, and it seems like a lot of the times, the big cities don't necessarily get as much of a cut out of municipal spending as say some of these suburbs. So I guess my question is, what do you do down there to have a strong voice for Farmington, and to represent Farmington, and to ensure that we get our funding versus, let's say, such as saying having a party line vote where maybe Farmington's best interests aren't at play in that vote. I'm just curious how you wade those waters.
Well, I think we wade those waters pretty well, actually, John. As you know, every year for the last several years, we've actually received an increase in grant money, overall grant money from the state, and that's because Brian and I and Terry Yadkin and Beth By, the four legislators from Farmington actually go to bat for the town. We went from a few years ago about $5.4 million in total grant money. Then we got the following year, fiscal year 15. As you probably know, we got the largest percentage increase of any town in the state. We went up to 6.2 million. So we went from 5.4 million to 6.2 million, so a 14% increase, which was really remarkable. And we managed, even though last year, the most recent budget that we passed back in June, even though it was a very difficult budget year, we managed to have Farmington be flat funded, and stay at that same 6.2 million level. Of course, then the rescissions came along in the fall, which that's a whole other story. But so I guess the short answer to your question is we actually go to bat for the town, and we've actually been pretty successful. If you look at the total dollar amount, and that's because we know who we work for, and we try to do a good effort. And the other thing is we all work together. I mean, there are four of us. We're lucky to have four people in the senators and representatives, and having four people is better than fighting the battle alone. So.
And I just want to add to that. I agree with what Mike said, but I also want to add to it that part of our job is coming out here too. We hear what our rules plays, we touch with the town manager on a frequent basis, and a lot of communications are open. Nancy had asked, if we learn anything, big or small, good or bad, get the word out to you sooner rather than later. And I think we try to do that. So hopefully it's two-way street so that we can do what we can to affect the town.
I'll just add one other thing. It was maybe 2 years ago. It was a particularly active year, and I remember we received a memo from Kathy listing about 4 or 5 different items. Were there 5 items? You have better memory. So we went to work and we actually accomplished all 5 of the asks that Kathy and the council asked of us. So we take it seriously, and we try to we try to deliver, and I think we do. So I'll leave it at that.
I think we appreciate that you do take it serious, no doubt about that. I know last year we did get flat funded, and then I believe there was, I don't remember what the exact number of the rescinds were, 170 or something,
Yes.
I think,
Yes.
what it may have been. And I do know that some surrounding towns did not get flat funding, they got increased funding and didn't have rescissions, which is kind of the basis of my question. It's nothing against you, I'm really just curious as to how towns like Farmington do manage to get their quote-unquote fair share of the pot. So I do appreciate what you do out there. Do you know how it's looking this year? I know you kind of introed with that, but do you really have any insight to where we're going to fall?
Brian will tell you he doesn't have a crystal ball, and I guess I would give you the same answer. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough because, fiscal austerity is the word, and
it's a good word.
Pardon? It's a good word. It's a good word. Good. And as you know, the governor is talking about changing the way that we do budgets. As he laid that out in his speech last Wednesday. We're going to change the way we do things. So it's going to be tough, and people are going to be disappointed because just as having years of experience here on the council myself, people are disappointed when they don't get everything that they're looking for. On the municipal level and on the state level, people are going to be disappointed when potentially they don't get everything that they're looking for and that they need. But it's going to be tough. That's the best I can tell you. But I will tell you, as Brian said, we will try to keep you informed as to what's going on. So you're seeing us today. This isn't the last time you will see us or hear from us because the session ends in May, but we have 3 months, and in that 3-month period, I will get phone calls and emails probably from all of you. Brian will get phone calls and emails, and we will keep the dialogue going and make sure that your concerns are addressed.
And if I could just add to that, notwithstanding the fact that serve on either the financial committees in the legislature, we got this package last Wednesday, so for less than a week, diving in and reading everything in there. I've got notes and questions scattered throughout that I've now developed and now can go to our nonpartisan office school and ask questions about it. If you see things and have questions about it, by all means ask them and try to see what we can find out. But understand the process is all moving jigsaw puzzle. It comes together over time. And as I said earlier, that's what's going on right now. The public is going to be leaving, and they're doing testimony as we speak. I believe. I don't know what's going on now. And it's going to go on for a while. So it's clear that
Other questions, comments? Amy?
No, sorry. Just with the grant funding is obviously in the budget an important thing, but the legislation that comes with the funding, do you guys have any comment about the municipal cap, the set aside that's coming down the pike, the motor vehicle tax? These are things, again, where globally in the state, looks like they're changing that may have adverse effects on the town of Farmington, and especially the philosophy. I'm really bothered by the municipal spending cap at 2.5%. And again, that really seemed like that legislation came about without any input from the towns at all. And no one really asked what our opinion is on it and what the outcome is. And it really pushes a town to have debt spending when you don't need to. The town of Farmington has votes on their budget, and if they approve a spending that's higher than 2.5%, but really because of Farmington's grand list, it doesn't necessarily correlate to a taxing increase of 2.5%. So if you look at our history of our spending cap, and especially with education and needing to spend for education, and you're capping us at 2.5%, when our tax rate could actually be less than that, and that the state is mandating these things and they're putting the state funds and the grants and jeopardizing us for it. I think that this is something that really has significant impact on the town of Farmington with really little input from any of the municipalities. And I know it's not looking like it's going to be this session, but this legislation is still there. and the set-aside, which came about where the state wasn't organized at all about getting contracts out, who was implementing them, what they were happening, and this was all legislation that was coming out with the budget too. So again, I ask that, we would love to see at least our municipal funding to be kept at least flat. If we could have additional, that would be great. But some of these bigger, larger issues, and again, with the motor vehicle tax, the cap on that, and it going to the state, and the state giving the money back to the town, all of that has not usually worked out that well for the town of Farmington. And so, again, I would ask that, we could have some more conversation about it, and we'll be writing some letters. We're in the process of our organizations and things like that, but take these ideas into account.
I'm just going to comment on one thing you said, and then, well, first of all, just to be clear, the motor vehicle tax doesn't actually apply to Farmington, because fortunately, our mill rate is below the level, that was put into the legislation, which is a good thing for Farmington. So, it affects a lot of other towns, but fortunately it doesn't affect Farmington. I'm going to let Brian explain that, if you would, that municipal budget cap, because I don't think it's as onerous as has been advertised. Is that fair to say?
So, if you ask that question and try to get some more information, we'll try to nail it down. So, my understanding at this point is it doesn't kick in until 2019, so we've got time to address it if there are changes that we need to look at. That's first, 2019. Secondly, the money that's affected, the grants that would be affected, are these new grants that we were just talking about. And so, my understanding is that to the extent that the town were to exceed the cap, it's 50 cents on the dollar reduction in that new grant money, up to a maximum of 50% of the entire grant. So no more than that. So just a concrete example to make it simpler is if you're doing $250,000 in this grant, the amount at risk, so to speak, would be $125,000 maximum. And in order for it to be $125,000, we have to exceed the cap by $250,000 or more. But in any event, we would wind up ahead, not behind. I think again, the intent, and we can talk about the addresses and whatnot, the intent was that these new money being used to try to create a property tax relief account. It's a different story than what you're saying.
What we had heard.
Growth and where potential exceptions need to be and things like that in consideration. So there's time before it kicks in.
Right.
And we should have the discussion.
But I guess what's bothersome, and it's not, is that this legislation is, I've been to conference after conference, and no one knows anything about it. And it really has significant ramifications on a town. And it's bothersome in general that the state is telling the towns how much they are allowed to spend. It's somewhat ironic.
Well, it's not an absolute cap. You can spend whatever you want. It's with this part, the money that's coming from the state is sending it as expressing an intention that you can use it to keep property taxes down. And therefore, the state is turning over this money, saying this we want to use it for. If you choose not to, it will be cut back somewhat. You're coming out ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know there's a lot more to come. I guess part of it is the confusion, but it's our entire budget process. So you're saying, okay, so a small portion of our close to $100 million budget can't go up more than 2% to receive a fund that comes in. And then my understanding is you have to put it on a tax bill that said, we went over the spending cap, and that's why we didn't receive this funding. And so again, this is what the information has gone, and how can we as a town now put on a how do you explain what you just explained, that actually we're ahead? And it would be helpful if before the laws were enacted or parts of it, we had some input from the municipalities. And again, I think it's just the whole kind of process.
So I just have a question for you. So like CCM or cost didn't have any heads up about this?
It's been very, very little implementation. It was in an implementer bill, my understanding of the last time around, and then that we went to a bunch of different conferences, and really people do not have a lot of information about how this is going to work.
Leslie, is it next week that the cost meeting is there, and
Yeah.
the leaders will be there?
Right.
So I'm assuming that they will hear probably clearly from members at cost as well.
I think so.
Bring it back, but also
Yep.
the towns can speak to them directly at that point.
Right, exactly.
And we've had a regional meeting last week, which you were both at, but part of our discussion was specifically about this issue.
Right.
And the group of towns, which is many in this area, in our region, together wrote a letter that they're sending. So it's clear that there are more than Farmington are concerned about this issue, and as we're the ones that try to keep our budgets within ranges of, what our constituency can pay, because we are paying really, the constituency is really paying the taxes here as opposed to some of the other larger cities. It shouldn't hurt us. And a number of these communities have band together to sign this, and will come, the letter's going to come up and you'll see that. But clearly something that all of these different groups, costs, CCM, there's not an awareness of what's going on. It would be helpful to have that discussion before something's implemented. And certainly in an implementer, that's not always something people know about. So.
And on the set-aside issue, as you mentioned that meeting you just spoke about last week, you were told that CHRO allegedly straightened this out in October. The training sessions that you referred to were pre-October 1, which were in for allegedly, they straightened this out in October. If that's not the case, if there's still confusion over it, please let us know. We'd be happy to try to set a meeting at CHRO, and let's see if we've got it straightened out. This will be important. So, happy to help you.
Thank you.
Please let us know.
And I have a couple things to ask specifically about, and that's one that I know the governor, and I know where we are right now, and we're hopeful we get our monies for next year, and certainly are kept flat. But one of the things that he's been a voice of is for transportation. One of the things in Farmington Center, it's been cut back, actually, the project that we have, I don't know exactly the dollars, but it's going to impact a piece of what we're going to do in Farmington Center, which is Route 10 and Route 4. And so after the fact now, we're going to look and see what we can do about it, but we're going to continue to ask that you look at that piece, which is Route 10 and Route 4. There was some right turn lanes and some that were going to clearly affect transportation, and better timing, better flow through the center. So that's one piece, and originally that was part of the plan.
That's been changed?
It was cut back.
Cut back.
Yeah.
Okay.
And-
Can you fill in?
Sure.
Yeah. And another thing that I am going to bring up this year, I did bring it up last year as well when it was just in the beginning stages of discussion, was, and it has to do with transportation again, and it's on a number of our documents tonight that we're going to take up, and one is our strategic plan, and one is actually the traffic study for High Street, but a number of different studies that were done in showing that because the transportation is difficult through Farmington, one of the possibilities of making it less so is to put something across the river. And what they've actually said in the documents was they didn't say a bridge, I'll say a bridge, but something across the river to help with transportation through Unionville and Farmington somewhere along Route 4. And that has come up at different meetings from citizens in town. Why aren't we looking at that again? It's come up in a couple of studies that have come to us. So I know as you're going through all your machinations with budgeting and so on, transportation has been a big thing for the governor. So I can't go without asking about that today. And we will have more information. It's something that we've discussed as being part of our strategic plan, which we're going to be looking at tonight. But it's clearly something that's come up in many, many different ways to us. So, and specifically to address the problems, one of the problems with transportation, and to be helpful with that. So I have to get that out there, and you'll hear more about that from us. But that is something that we're going to be talking to you about. But particularly in Farmington Center, the fact that the plan was cut back, that's a concern to us. So, and we'll get you that information.
I was going to say, yes, please do get the information to us. And no, I know you guys are always in contact with DOT, so that goes without saying. But if we can help with those discussions with DOT, happy to help. But, okay, has DOT talked about? Have you even broached that bridge idea with anybody at DOT, or is that down the road?
Well, not yet, right now.
Okay.
I mean, that's come through the studies,
Yeah.
but I would imagine that I can't speak for the council, but I'm sure if we move forward with something in that direction, we'd be bringing up our old plans. We have some old plans that were brought up a number of years ago, and then we can rethink those and look at those. So, anything else, Kev? No? Anything else? Okay, well, thank you very much for coming, and good luck. We'll be talking. And now we have a presentation for our audit, and I'd ask
Vanessa and Leslie.
and we'll take out our booklets. Welcome.
Yes, good evening, everyone. So another audit season has gone by. Here we are again. Just for some of you that don't know us, my name is Vanessa Levito. I'm an audit partner at Municipal Budget Cap. I have with me Leslie Saul, who's a principal. And I'm actually going to turn it over to Leslie.
Okay.
So thank you for having us here tonight. I'm going to briefly go through the sections of the report, give you some highlights. If you have any questions at all, you want to stop me at any time, please do so. I'm going to start with our letter on page 2. This is our opinion letter, and we want to present to you tonight an unmodified opinion, and that means the financial statements do present fairly in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. That's an opinion that you would want to receive every year, and you've done so again this year. The second paragraph on that page, I want to bring to your attention. This year has been the first.
Which letter are you? You have 3.
It's in the financial statements, page 2.
Okay. Good.
Second paragraph. This year is the first year of the implementation of GASB statement number 68 on pensions. And in accordance with that standard, we did restate the beginning balance on your governmental-wide financial statements. And as I go through the different sections, we'll point out those differences to you, but I did want to alert you to the fact that in note 7, we did have a restatement of the beginning balance in accordance with that new standard. Just while you're moving along, the next few pages, the MD&A is written by the finance department. It just gives you a snapshot, a very high-level description of what went on during the year. And now I'd like to bring you to page 13. That's the first exhibit of the financial statements. Exhibit 1 and Exhibit 2 are on the full accrual basis of accounting, which means all of your long-term liabilities and all your long-term receivables are included in these 2 exhibits. We have your governmental activities, which include all your governmental funds and your internal service fund, and then you have the business type activities, which includes the golf course and the waste collection fund. Currently, the town of Farmington has a total net position of $84.7 million, and that's an increase of $3 million from last year. Moving on to page 15, Exhibit 3 and Exhibit 4. Both of these schedules are on a modified basis of accrual. They're broken out by major funds. Your total governmental fund balance as of 6/30/2015 is $18.6 million. That is an increase of $4.9 million from last year, so that was a positive net change in fund balance. Your unassigned fund balance in the general fund is $10.3 million. That's 11% of your general fund budgeted expenditures. It's a healthy fund balance to have, and you continue to have a strong collection rate at 99%. On each of these exhibits, if you look on page 16 and 18, it does give you a reconciliation between the first 2 exhibits and Exhibit 3 and 4. So it'll show you how we got from fund balance to your net assets on a full accrual basis of accounting. On page 19, Exhibit 5 are your proprietary funds. your Westwood's golf course and waste collection funds, as well as your internal service, which is your self-insurance fund. The change in net position for the year, for your business type activities went up about 30,000, so that was relatively flat. Your self-insurance fund dipped a little bit, $1.2 million for the year. And then on page 22 and 23, it shows you your statement of net position and change in your pension fund. Your pension fund has stayed relatively flat this year at a change in net position increase of $104,000. Starting on page 24 are the notes to the financial statements. Not too many changes except for, as I discussed before, the implementation of GASB 68. So if you could turn to page 42, that pension footnote, there's a lot more disclosures that you'll see that you have not seen in the past. And I just want to take you to the bottom of page 44 that shows the net pension liability of $26 million. You're currently funded at 75%, which is pretty strong for funding your plan. Keep in mind that the same type of GASB is going to be implemented in a few years for your other post-employment benefits, so that OPEB liability will also be going on the balance sheet in a few years, similar to this standard. There also is disclosure starting on page 47 for the state teachers plan in accordance with GASB 68. In the state of Connecticut, you're not required to fund that plan, so there's no liability to the town on the balance sheet, but we are required to disclose the amounts that are your state's proportionate share of the town's liability. And on the bottom of page 48, you can see that proportional share for Farmington is $78.8 million. They're currently funded at 65%. And then I just wanted to highlight your budgetary schedules, RSI 1 and RSI 2, that starts on page 55. And you can see at the end of on the bottom of page 56, you had a favorable budget variance on your revenues of $500,000. And you can see on the middle of page 58, you had a positive variance on the expenditure side of $169,000. So you came out in the plus for both your revenues and your expenditures. There's RSI 3 through RSI 6 is the new GASB implementation, and the RSI related to your pension, as well as the state teacher's retirement here on RSI 6. And the rest of the report is just more detail that rolls up to the front. Does anyone have any questions on the financial?
John?
Thanks for coming out tonight. Appreciate it. Just going back to this GASB 68 change, is this something, and I'm sorry that I don't know this, but is this something, how did that, why is that changed? Is it something the council approved to change? Is it
No, that's a generally accepted accounting principle change by the government, the GASB, the board itself.
Okay.
To just have more transparency around the liabilities that exist regarding pensions.
Right, because we all know that that's a big problem, a big issue with many municipalities, a lot of public sector. So that board implemented this change, right? And what does that mean for the town of Farmington? Our employees, is it just a change of how you look at our books? I guess I'm not understanding.
It's more of a
what's changed.
financial statement information.
Okay.
It's for informational purposes only, really. I'm sure at some point the bond rating agencies will look at this, but it's just for financial statement purposes.
So before this standard was implemented, there was a lot of differences among all the municipalities of how they calculated the discount rate, the actuarial method that they used. So this standard kind of kind of comparing apples to apples.
Okay.
That's what the thought is. And so that, like Leslie mentioned, what they did for pension, they're going to do for OPEB.
Right.
So it's just a change in the way the liability is measured. It was always measured before under the old GASB standard, but it's a little bit more stringent now.
And it just makes it a little bit more.
Right, and so the information has always been in the notes to the financial statement, but now we're recording it in the financial statement, in the actual balance sheet. So it's really not a surprise to the rating agency. They know what reliability was. It's now in the financial statement.
All right.
And
And you
then
say.
there's more consistency across the board.
Right.
Between municipalities.
Okay, so it's easier to compare and not necessarily hide or muddle things. So we don't have run into issues down the road. And we're funded at 75%, and that's fairly strong from my understanding.
Yeah, the industry says 80% is good. The 75% is based upon the market value of your pension assets at June 30th, so it could be pretty volatile depending on how the market acts on June 30th.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Other questions? One of the things that's in here is, at the beginning, talks about our fund balance at 10.79. And I know last year, you talked about what other communities were striving for, and that we should continue to strive for more and continue to hold that reserve. And that I thought you mentioned like 12% that we should be, and there were actually communities at 15. What are you thinking now? What is this year? What is it?
I mean, that's probably a better, there's a range, so it should be anywhere between 10 and 15. So I think you're in
Okay.
that range, which is great. I mean, there's other things that go along with it. But rating agencies look at a number of different things in addition to fund balance. So probably, you know, that's a good conversation to have with them on what they think the good range is for you.
But you think that's we're
I
solid
think
at that.
Anything above 10% is good, absolutely. I mean, you start to get into, if it's too high, then are you taxing too much? So
Right.
you have to have.
There's a
some kind
balance.
of balance, right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'd like to go over this state and federal single audits now briefly with you. These are the smaller deliverables. Every year we're required to test for compliance on any state and federal monies that you receive during the year. There's a threshold and there's a process by which we pick which programs we test every year. And so in each of these, right now I'm looking at the state single audit. Page 10 gives you a very nice summary of which programs we tested and whether or not there was any findings. I'm happy to report to you tonight that there was no compliance issues either on the financial statement side or on the state side in relation to any of these programs or the entity as a whole. So there's no findings to report to you tonight on those. The same is true on the federal single audit. We tested the highway planning and construction cluster this year, and there was no findings to report on that program as well. In terms of our communication that we're required to give to the council, every year we do provide you with a short letter of things, boilerplate type things that we're required to communicate to you. Were there any disagreements with management? Was there any uncorrected misstatements? We don't have any of those to report to you. There's no significant deficiencies, no material weaknesses to report to you tonight. In terms of our management letter, we did have one comment, and this is not related to an issue or a problem that we had with the audit, but as I'm sure you read in the newspaper, fraud is apparent during this time, and so the best thing that any town and municipality can do right now is to deter and detect things from happening, not having that opportunity for anyone to do any type of fraud. And so we would like to just suggest that, you have that segregation of duties in place. sometimes it's hard when you have a small finance department of, where the checks and balances are. But we like to just stress to you and recommend to you that, especially where it's related to cash, bank reconciliations, you should always have that checks and balances. So if someone's preparing it, someone else should be reviewing their work, especially with journal entries. I know, the audit's coming and things need to get done, and obviously Joe is very capable and does the financial statements beautifully, but you always want to have that check. So you're always going to want to have someone prepare those journal entries and have someone review them. So that was our suggestion and our recommendation this year on the management letter.
That suggestion and that recommendation, is that coming from something that you found in the practices in the town of Farmington?
It's
or is
more
it
of a
simply
general
suggestion in the recommendation? Okay.
I'm sure there's instances where, they might not have enough staff on hand to do everything, to have, dual, checks and balances, but, we just want, as a general comment, to suggest that you make sure that that happens.
So did you find anything bad?
We don't have anything to report as far as significant deficiencies in material weaknesses.
That would be in black and white.
I'm surprised.
I'm not surprised at all, Kathy. Not at all.
There is nothing.
I'm thrilled.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to work with both the finance department of the town and the Board of Education.
Well, it seems year after year, we've had really very good reports, and so we always look forward to tonight. They seem to be, we have a favorable rating, and I'm just glad to see that our fund balance continues to rise so that we can continue to have that AAA rating. And we do have a few things coming up, our sewer project, and which is quite extensive, and we also have a high school building committee formed now to look at changes in the high school and possible renovation, or so that in the future is going to be something that we're going to be looking at. And we have already had conversations with Joe, with the council, about how that's going to affect, and looking at our dollars and cents out, bonding and everything, years out, so that we know when it's things are when's a better time for us to come online with some of these things. But the sewer project's already in place and will be coming on, and so I'm sure there'll be some changes with that next year. So, but thank you very much, and we appreciate your time and your coming.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have a public hearings. First, we have a public hearing. Oh, we have a public hearing in our town clerk will read the town public hearing.
Public hearing will be held on Tuesday, February 9th, 2016 at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chamber to amend Chapter 76 Taxation of the Town of Farmington Code, dated at Farmington, Connecticut, 26th day of January 2016. Kathleen A. Egan, Town Manager.
Good evening. Today we have a public hearing on Chapter 176 Taxation, some amendments to the ordinance. The first amendment is to update the existing Town of Farmington tax credit for elderly homeowners pursuant to Section 12-129N of the Connecticut General Statutes. This program was enacted for the purpose of assisting elderly homeowners with a portion of the cost of real property taxation. The primary change is updating the income levels and adjusting the tax reduction to be the same as the state program. The local town ordinance will continue to add $6,000 to the highest level of state benefits. This additional tier will allow more senior citizens in town to participate in the local tax credit. The second amendment is adding a new tax exemption for qualified veterans. Any veteran entitled to a tax exemption for property tax in accordance with the Connecticut General State Statute who has a disability rating of 100% as determined by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs shall be entitled to an additional exemption, local exemption, that is equal to 3 times the amount of the exemption that is currently provided. To be qualified, one must be a veteran, low income, and 100% disabled. Currently, the veterans assessment is lowered by $9,000, the state $6,000, and Farmington $3,000. The new exemption lowers the assessment by $15,000. That's the state $6,000 and Farmington $9,000. The third amendment is to update the existing tax freeze program for the elderly homeowner pursuant to Section 1 and 2 of Public Act Number 06176. To qualify for the tax freeze program, one must be 80 years old or over and must be a taxpayer of the town of Farmington for at least 3 years. The primary change to this section is adding a cap to match the tax credit program, the state tax credit program. Additional administrative changes were made regarding deadlines for tax relief claims in the event of death, transfer, grant, or conveyance. Oops, did I miss one? Sorry. We also added a new article dealing with waivers and excess payments. Article 8 is a waivers and excess payment was added with the following sections. 176-29 waives any property tax, sewer use charge, or waste collection charge due to the town that is under $5. Section 179-30 grants the tax collector the authority to retain on behalf of the town any excess tax, sewer use, or waste collection payments that is less than $5 and post the funds to the town's operating budget as miscellaneous revenue. In conclusion, these amendments and changes are enhancing benefits to our low-income elderly and veterans. They're codifying the existing practices, and we're clarifying language throughout the ordinance.
Thank you, Kathy. And at this time, if anyone from the public would like to comment, please come up to the podium and state your name and address. Hearing none, we'll close the hearing. Paula?
A public hearing will be held on Tuesday, February 9, 2016 at 7:10 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers to amend Chapter 83, Building Construction of the Town Code, dated Farmington, Connecticut, 26th day of January 2016. Kathleen A. Egan, Town Manager.
Okay.
Good evening. This is to update Chapter 83, Building Construction. The proposed amendment is a new section 83-3-2 would be added to this ordinance requiring the building official to withhold any building application when there are delinquent taxes or charges due to the affected property. However, it should be noted that the building authority is authorized to issue the applied permit despite the delinquent taxes or charges if he determines that an emergency exists that affects health or safety. The building application includes a building permit application, certificate of occupancy, a mechanical permit, electrical permit, all other permits issued by the building inspector or designee under the State of Connecticut Building Code. When a building application is received and the tax collector determines there are delinquent town charges, he or she notifies the building official in writing to deny the application until the charges are paid in full. The town charges include taxes and sewer use charges, sewer and water assessments, and tax collection charges.
Thank you, Kathy. If anyone would like to make a public comment, please come up again to the podium and state your name and address. Okay, hearing none, we'll close the hearing.
A public
Paula?
hearing will be held on February 9, 2016 at 7:15 PM in the Town Hall Council Chambers to consider the acquisition of properties owned by October 24 Incorporated located at 8885 Southridge Road, Lot 7, and 8809 Lot 6A and B, Settlement Road, approximately 107.1 acres for the purchase price of $1,225,000. Dated Farmington, Connecticut, the first day of February 2016, Kathleen A. Egan, Town Manager.
Thank you, Paula. Bill, Liz, welcome.
Thank you. Nobody told me about all this fancy technology.
Oh. I like those big mats anyway. Can see them very clearly. Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Town Council. My name is Bill Wadsworth, live on 73 Red Oak Hill in Farmington, and I'm here tonight as a member of the Land Acquisition Committee to present for your consideration the purchase of Parcel 8885 Southridge Road and Parcel 8809 Settlement Road. This properties, both of them are located in the southeast part of town, and if you look over the back here, this area here, and it's part of the Batterson Park Pond watershed area. To the south of this property is the town of Plainville. I think we can flip that to this. To the south of there, in this area here, is the town of Plainville, which has both a combination of open space on the top of the ridge and residential properties on the bottom of the ridge. Metacomet Road is over in that area. To the west of it is the residential properties of Southridge Road and Trumbull. To the east of it is City of Hartford property here, and then the Department of Environmental Protection property, Deadwood Swamp, is adjacent to that. And then to the north of it, we have property owned by Tilcon Minerals up in this area here. There's access to the property from Southridge Road. There is a 50-foot right-of-way right here that will get you onto the property, albeit very challenging, but there is a right-of-way there. And then we have the terminus of Trumbull Lane. In this area here, there's access, public access to the property. Metacomet Road, I'm sure all of you are familiar with Metacomet Road in this area here. There's an actual right-of-way or property owned by the current owner of this property that people use to get up to Pinnacle Rock and the Blue Dot Trail. And then, as I just mentioned, the Blue Dot Trail, which runs on the property from here down, certainly a lot of access along that by climbers and hikers for quite some time. There's about 2/3 of a mile of the Blue Dot Trail on these properties here. The current owner is October 24 out of Plainville, Connecticut. The size of the property is the Southridge Road property is 84.1 acres, and the Settlement Road property is 23 acres. It combines a total of 107.1 acres. It's currently R80 zoned. And land characteristics are that there's wetlands to the west, down in this area here. And then as you go up the slope, up the ridge line, it gets into a more woodland condition. And then on top of the ridge line up in this area here, you'll have sloping and rolling topography. There's wildlife corridors, and there's a migration path for several bird species. So this meets the requirements of item 2 of the land acquisition procedures for open space, in which it is land that has significant scenic, topographic, conservation, or wilderness value based on the characteristics of the land. There's quite a few historical functions or attributes to this property up here. Just off the Settlement Road is the Hospital Rock, which I think maybe some or all of you have heard about. It is literally across the road from this property here, so it's within probably 10 feet of the property. There's ancient foundations and wells on the property. And Settlement Road, which is a paper road, it's still there. I mean, you can still walk and recognize it as a road. I'm told has wagon wheel cuts in the rocks that are on the surface of that from the days when it was used to get between Farmington and New Britain. The Plan of Conservation and Development has noted 7 different planning objectives for this, that this property fits into. One is to vigorously protect wetlands, and the other is to have ridgeline protection regulations must be aggressively enforced. Another one is to maximize wildlife value for food, shelter, nesting, and/or migration. Preserving wildlife corridors, encouraging wildlife preservation and diversity, preserve the Metacomic Trail, and interconnect to existing and future open space for wildlife corridors. We already have some properties here. Will Warren's Den was given to the town of Farmington years ago. This open space here was given as a result of the development of the end of Forest Hill Drive. And then this property here we acquired a couple of years ago from a private party. So we have some open space up in the area. And so this would have some beginnings of connectivity of all that open space. We've looked at this in land acquisition for quite a while and realized that it's an important piece of property in town, this whole area, this whole ridgetop. So we encourage its acquisition. This land was placed on the land acquisition list, Southridge Road parcel, in February of 1998, which was when land acquisition started, so they immediately recognized that this was a parcel that we should be looking at. And then parcel 8809 Settlement Road got on in January of 2007. And it complies with item 5 of the Land Acquisition Committee procedures. It was approved to be listed by the Conservation Commission. And at the time that the properties get listed, it's typical that we send out a letter of interest to the property owner. That was done a number of times over the past 10 or 15 years to this particular owner. And finally, we got an indication that the owner would be agreeable to sell. There was consensus by the town council to get the property appraised. And we got that appraisal done on August 19th, 2014, in which the 107.1 acres was appraised for the town of Farmington at $1,125,000 or $10,500 per acre. The owner, and we encourage this, the owner got their appraisal done on July 17th, 2014, and that 107.1 acres came in at $1,715,000, roughly $590,000 above ours. $16,000 per acre for them. This property was listed on the open market for sale. It went in at, I think, $2.5 million, and then got gradually reduced over time. So they did try to sell it to the public, but there were no takers. After some negotiations since the summer of 14 till now, the Land Acquisition Committee had many meetings with them, and then through the work with the council, there was an agreement for a sell price of $1,225,000, which is roughly $11,438 per acre. Further considerations for this property, which are typical for any land purchases by the town of Farmington. We did have the opportunity to submit the state of Connecticut grant submission, and we'll have Liz speak to that. We will have a phase 1, at least a phase 1 environmental study done on the property, require a warranty deed, and then to survey the property. So the total cost of the property as presented tonight is $1,225,000. And Liz, if you want to go through the State of Connecticut grant program. Part of our strategy was to wait until this grant became available because it does impact the cost of the property overall.
You want to come up to the mic?
Sure.
Thanks.
The grant application was just submitted to the state this last Tuesday. And as part of that, we've done a full evaluation of the property. We did have to get 2 new appraisals. However, the state process for the appraisals is slightly different than our initial round. They require what's called the Yellow Book appraisal, which is the appraisal required for federal land. As a result, they had to evaluate all of the property owned by IODI. not just October 24, but any of the principals involved, and then take those out. So as a result, the value came out slightly different, not hugely. So the value submitted as part of the grants was $1,980,000, which would be based on what our grant possibility would be approximately, it's usually around 50%. The state has tended to cap those, although they can give as much as 65% of the value of the property to a grant. They've usually capped it at approximately $450,000 or $500,000 in the past. So that would be hopefully what we would anticipate through this, given the appraisals that we were able to submit to the state.
Okay.
All right.
So with that, if we get up to the $500,000, which we would certainly appreciate, that lowers our overall cost to $725,000 or $6,769 per acre. We have some supporting documentation and some people here to present that. So I think the Land Trust is here to read into the records. Richard, do you want to come up, please?
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Madam Chair, council members. My name is Richard Kramer. I live at 105 Main Street, Farmington. I've been a resident of the town for over 40 years. I'm currently president of the Farmington Land Trust. The Land Trust enthusiastically supports the proposed purchase of this open space. The Land Trust has a long history of support for the protection of the southern portion of the ridgeline in Farmington, one of the very important undeveloped areas in town. The Trap Rock Ridge, extending the length of the eastern boundary of Farmington, is the defining geological structure which created the Farmington River Valley. The 107 acres under consideration for purchase are part of a 700-acre tract which we would very much like to see preserved. As Bill mentioned, the Metacomet Trail traverses this ridgeline, and it's an important segment of the National New England Scenic Trail System. I think others will talk a little bit about that trail system. There's a high biodiversity on the tract. It features a variety of habitats. I think Bill mentioned the wetlands, the Trap Rock Ridge, the cliffs, and the woodlands. Many of our members hike this area and have worked to support its acquisition. The acquisition of these properties as open space would be a very important step in the preservation of the southern ridgeline. The town, as Bill mentioned, already owns the Wadsworth Memorial Tract nearby, which preserves important geological features as well as a historic site of a folk legend of Farmington, Will Warren's Den. The Land Trust holds a conservation easement on this property, and it is one of our most frequently visited sites. We propose to the town that a similar arrangement, that is, a grant of conservation easement, to maintain these 107 acres in their natural and undeveloped state, be made to the Land Trust. The Land Trust would provide stewardship for the properties. An additional easement to the Connecticut Forest and Parks Association would, in addition, ensure the preservation of the section of the Metacomet Trail. Together, we can preserve this wonderful land and its resources for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Richard. And I believe, Bob, Conservation Commission.
Good evening. I'm Robert Eisler, 8 Trotters Glen. I'm here as a member of the Farmington Conservation Commission. I believe that you should have received a February 3rd letter from Chairman John Hinsey of the Conservation Commission. So in short, if you've had the letter, I won't go through and read it in its entirety, but the Farmington Conservation Commission strongly encourages and supports the acquisition of this property, given its unique environmental, ecological, and recreational values. So I agree with everything that's been said about this property, and the Conservation Commission strongly encourages the acquisition. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob. We have two other letters. One is from the Connecticut Forests and Parks because they're concerned about the Metacomet Trail primarily. I will submit those in again also for record. And something brand new that we've never seen before on land acquisition for open space here in Farmington, the National Park Service sent a letter in. So we must be rising to their level of interest. So we will also submit that for record.
There you
As part of this.
go. Okay, good.
So with that, thank you for your time, and we'll open up to questions.
Okay, thank you, Bill and Liz. If anyone would like to comment, please come to the podium and state your name and address.
Hello, I'm Peter Darpalin, 21 Centerbrook Drive, Farmington, Connecticut. I'm the Connecticut Forest and Park Trails Manager for this section of the Metacomet. I'm responsible for the section from Route 6 in Farmington to Route 372 in Plainville. It's a 4-mile section. I'm the guy that paints the blue blazes on the trail and cuts away the blowdowns. I should mention that Connecticut Forest and Park oversees a network of 800 miles of blue blaze trails in the state of Connecticut. They're a private nonprofit organization. I definitely support the purchase of the property for open space to ensure the trails protection. Right now, as you know, the trail exists with the permission of the property owner, and so we're always vulnerable. I think the trail corridor over the October 24 property is really beautiful, with the trail following a dramatic trap rock ridgeline. Portions of this section, to me, have a very remote, almost wilderness feel to it. There's no sign of development. There's no sign of development. There's no sounds of traffic. I personally love hiking this section. In the wintertime, it's great for snowshoeing. When the leaves are off the trees, especially in the winter with snow on the ground, the rocky ridgeline has this dramatic, almost three-dimensional quality to it. I mean, it just really would be wonderful to assure that this trail corridor is permanently preserved. It's just a beautiful piece of open space. I should note that, and others have mentioned already, that the trail is a vital part of the New England National Scenic Trail, which extends over 200 miles, starting with Long Island Sound and going up to the New Hampshire border. The Appalachian Trail is the other national scenic trail in the state. There's only 11 national scenic trails in all of the country. So that's really something to have too in Connecticut. We get many New England trail through hikers on my section, and I have a register, a trail log at the top of Rattlesnake Mountain, and I've gotten quite a few comments from the through hikers that they really like this particular section of the trail. The Connecticut Forest and Park, as was noted, has already submitted comments to the council, but I do want to highlight one comment that they made, and that is the best location for a national scenic trail in Farmington is along the prominent ridgeline with its incredible views to the south and the west. This acquisition will ensure the trail stays in its rightful place for generations to enjoy. I fully agree. And I should also mention there also seem to be some efforts to preserve that ridgeline in Plainville, and I'm not quite sure how far those have come along, but there are some discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment about this issue?
So my name is Doug Pelham, and I live at 46 Mountain Road, and I just wanted to register my support for this acquisition. I also happen to be the treasurer of the Farmington Land Trust, and as you heard before, I'm involved in the Boy Scouts in town, and therefore am very much a fan of open space and preservation of open space in town. One of the things that Peter mentioned and Bill mentioned too about the trail, the New England National Scenic Trail, is many of these trails are in existence just merely because of a handshake between the property owner and the Connecticut Forest and Parks Association. And so there's always an effort to try and preserve the trail in a more meaningful way. And this is, I think, a great opportunity to do that we should not squander. At any time, if any of these property owners decided for whatever reason they didn't want to have people hiking across the trail, they could close it. And that would, of course, be a great loss. I mean, as Peter, I think, mentioned, this trail stretches over 200 miles from Long Island Sound to the border of Massachusetts and New Hampshire. And every section that we can protect is just one more way to protect this for the future generations of Farmington and really everyone in Connecticut and New England. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug. Other comments? Sir?
Hi, I'm Paul Batista. I live at 6 Southridge Road. First off, thank you for everything you do for the town. I'll speak as a, so 6 Southridge is right here. Doesn't quite touch the property in question down here, but close enough where I spend a lot of time up there hiking. In fact, just this weekend I was up there with my daughter. She's only 2, so she was in a backpack.
Oh.
And I was excited to get up there and hit the Blue Trail and see all the footprints of how much traffic it has even now in the winter. So it's very well trafficked. I'm here actually with my father, who also lives nearby. So he lives at the end of Trumbull, so here, which does touch the property there, and always keeping an eye out for people there potentially abusing, littering, stuff like that. It is an amazing trail, an amazing area for wildlife. We regularly see bears, bobcats, you name it, in terms of wildlife that you would expect in this state, and we see it in this little lock of land right here. So I strongly support the town's acquisition of the property.
Thank you, Paul. Other public comment? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Linda Kresge. I live at 45 Wellington Drive in Farmington, and I wasn't planning to speak, but I'm here, and it's very important that I do, I think, because from what I'm hearing, I've moved to Farmington because it's such a beautiful town. I wanted to live here 30 years ago, and now I'm here, and I want to preserve as much of the beauty and history of it as possible. And when I come up Route 6 up the mountain, I see where they built the hotel and everything, and I see little bits being chipped away. And I want it to end, because I want the town to stay cohesive as one beautiful environmental and historical piece of property. And the other thing that comes to my mind is the wildlife paths that we do have. On the Wellington property, we have a lot of wildlife, unusual wildlife that you wouldn't see. And I know that they are following, when they fly through, they're going through Wellington and they're going up to the mountain, and there's a definite path that they're following, and I think it's very important to not break up that path, because the environment is just as, and the wildlife is just as important to the whole picture as our beautiful town of Farmington. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment? Okay, anything else, Bill Tabb?
Yes, I'd like to thank you, council members. I'd like to thank our land acquisition consultant, Liz Dolphin, our town manager, Kathy Egan, and fellow members of the Land Acquisition Committee, our chair, Peter Batista, John Hinsey, Evan Coles, Richard Kramer, Alan Quigney, and Amy Seffrandini. So thank you all for your participation in this effort, and that'll be it for us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all coming tonight to speak. And that'll close the hearing. Okay. We are now on to new items, at which there are none. At this time, I'd ask for public comment on any issue. If you have any public comment on any issue, please come to the podium and say your name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
Beth Kittner, 24 Farmstead Lane, Farmington.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Good evening. I just wanted to come by tonight from the Board of Education meeting, actually, as we are certainly underway in budget season, and introduce myself to new council member and just welcome everyone back to budget season, I guess. So I've been a resident of Farmington for 19 years. I'm a parent of a 1st and 3rd grader as well as an 8th grader. And I've been the president of Farmington Future, which is our town budget advocacy group here in Farmington, for several years. And I just wanted to give you kind of an update as to where the organization is at this point. So we've had some leadership change since my co-president, Liz Fitzsimmons, was elected to the Board of Education. And we've had a lot of new volunteers and new supporters come forward through some involvement with the process last year. So we're happy to have kind of a new and invigorated group. Since we've had some quiet budget years in the past, that's not always a time where we have a lot of people coming forward and looking to fight for the budget. So we have several new volunteers and officers as well in our organization. And we're seeing them come out to meetings and watching the budget process as it starts to unfold, and we'll be continuing to do that. And as we always do, we are communicating the major points and issues with the budget every year to a very large, through a large email distribution list and our other networks. We have a Facebook page, website, and we'll continue to do that as well. And we have a pretty strong history the past 4 to 5 years in particular of getting people out to support the budget, looking to make sure that we have a good budget for both the town side and the school side of things. And we'll be continuing that as well. We have a big get out the vote effort from the time of the annual town meeting to the budget referendum. We work really hard to make sure people are aware that we have a referendum vote and that the importance of voting and the importance of our budget for keeping our schools in town strong in the community. So just wanted to give you that update, and we're looking forward to working with you all. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Beth. Other public comment? Okay, we'll move on then to reading of the minutes. Motion for January 12th.
Madam Chair, I move to accept the January 12th, 2016 regular town council meeting minutes.
Second.
Any corrections or changes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
I move to accept the minutes for the January 25th, 2016 special town council meeting.
Second.
Any questions or changes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Okay. I move to accept the minutes of the January 26th, 2016 regular town council meeting.
Second.
Any questions or changes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Reading of the communications. Kathy.
You have in your packet a response back to a letter that I wrote on September 8th, 2015 to the Department of Transportation, asking them to paint the Unionville Bridge. I was looking to have them paint really the railings, at least to start there, but I did get a response back saying that they would be painting the bridge for us. So I'll have more information on that. It's going to be a project name, and we'll be tracking that. It looks like it's going to be a rather large project, but I was happy to receive the letter saying that they were going to be willing to paint the bridge.
That's great. It's about time. One question I had, in the letter it says progress through the design process. Is there any way we can be doing that to move it along?
I can find out.
Because
Yeah.
we generally, if we're a part of it, it seems to get
Move a little
going
bit
a little
faster.
faster, so. Thank you, Kathy, and that's great news. Okay, report of committees. Yukon.
Excuse me, could I?
Oh, I'm sorry, John.
Could I just go back to the
Sure,
bridge thing?
sure.
They don't write very clearly here. No, it doesn't clearly state that they're going to paint the bridge. What they talk about is all maintenance items, structural items, as well as rehabilitation, replacement, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm fearful that they're going to make this into a lot bigger project than painting the bridge. And that bigness is going to mean that they don't paint it for years. So is there some way for us to, like, get them back to a smaller?
What we asked for was to paint the bridge.
Right.
That was all.
Well, I actually asked to have
Maybe the railing.
I asked for the
And the
railings.
railings, yes,
railings
yes.
to be painted. Your point is well taken. We do meet with the state. They're very clear that we just want the bridge painted as quick as possible, but we will keep on top of that. So again, everything. It wasn't our intent to have this be a 5-year project.
No.
We
Right.
want them to go out and do the
Right.
railings at least, and then, paint the rest of the structure. So more to come on that, and so I had a meeting with them recently, and they said this letter was coming, so we received the letter. So when we see them again, we will definitely see what their timing is, and that will push them just to paint the bridge as fast as possible.
Right, and my understanding also is that the last time they did the structure review, the bridge passed.
That's
Correct.
right.
That's correct.
So it's not like
It's-
it's structurally
No.
deficient.
No, all we need is it painted.
Yeah, I think it was a surprise to see all that, and then to see 2 to 3 year process.
Yeah.
And it was just, we read it a couple times and said, we just asked to paint the bridge. And and financially and speed, to get it done. So we're just going to try to reiterate that. So.
Thank you.
Point well taken. Okay, report of committees, Yukon. February 19th, we're meeting at Yukon at 12 noon. Land acquisition.
Well, I'm happy to report, we just had a public hearing on South Road and Settlement Road. So that's all good, and that's all I have to report right now.
Good, good. Green efforts.
So there's a couple things. First of all, I want to make sure that everybody knows that the Farmington Cleanup Day, the annual Cleanup Day, is going to be occurring on April the 30th. That's a Saturday. People will be picking up trash not only on that particular day, but throughout that week. And the trash will get weighed on, and we'll have competitions around it, as we've done in the past several years. But it is April the 30th, so everybody should mark that on their calendars. The second thing that the committee's looking into right now is the possibility of offering compost containers for sale at a discounted price through the town. And basically how this would work is that the town would organize a program, wouldn't cost us money to do this, we would organize a program to allow people to go out to the vendor to purchase compost containers, and they would be delivered to the town in mass, and we would have a delivery day. So that isn't settled yet, but that's a strong possibility, and that would occur hopefully in conjunction with the cleanup day. And what we're thinking is that we use the cleanup day to show people what the compost containers look like, and they can take steps to make the purchases, and we will set up a delivery later this year.
Okay, thank you. Joint Town of Farmington, City of Hartford Committee.
Nothing to report on.
Bike Advisory Committee.
So the Bike Advisory Committee is meeting this Thursday, but just so everybody knows, we are continuing our efforts to provide signage, so warnings to cars. And what we're trying to do is to highlight the streets that we think are most suitable for moving around town, different sections of town, that are off-state roads. So a road like Coppermine Road, for example, which allows people to get over towards into Burlington, would be a road that we would look to. And we're basically looking for signage, but some of the roads will be painted with sharrows as well.
Okay, thank you. Farmington Gateway Committee.
We will have our first meeting of the year, February 18th.
I think it's going to be March. I don't think, I don't think we're having the February one.
Oh, that changed.
I think,
Kathy?
I think it's still on. I will make sure we get clarity of that. I'm pretty sure it's still.
Because there was a discussion about it being a school
School
week
week.
and there hasn't been any notice yet.
Okay, I'll find out. I'll track back
Well,
on that.
I still held that too.
I still held it too, so I'll check.
So at this point, there's nothing new to report. At our next meeting, we'll have something to report on. We're going to have a report of the full committee, potentially February 18th.
Okay, thank you. More to come. Webpage committee.
Webpage committee, we met just before this meeting, 6 o'clock today, and significant progress has been made. Right now, we've basically approved the homepage design, and we went over some interior page designs today, and I've got a list here of all the pages that we're going over the next week.
Oh.
So we're definitely making progress. I believe we plan on, we hope to have something to present by sometime late April, and that will depend on how quick it can be developed by the firm that's developing it. But I'm very excited. It looks great. It's gonna be aesthetically pleasing, easy to navigate, useful and relevant, future-proof, all sorts of good things. So
Great.
I'm very excited for it. I don't know. Do you want to add anything, John?
I know that was good.
Okay.
I like easy to navigate.
Well, that's, we're really trying really hard.
That's great.
For that. There's a lot of information in any municipality. You have a lot of information. You have different audiences, such as people looking for government things, visitors looking for attractions or looking for reasons to move to the town. So we're really trying to incorporate all of that and just make it easy for every audience to find what they're looking for fast.
Great. Okay, thank you. One committee we don't have on here, which we'll have to begin to include, is the Farmington High School Building Committee.
Oh, yeah, I forgot to do that. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this new committee has one meeting under its belt, and during its first meeting, the members introduced themselves, they went over the charge of the committee as directed by the council, and then they took a very comprehensive tour of the high school, which was really great for all committee members. And what I wanted to say is that they are actually having their second meeting tomorrow. They're starting off in the high school library at 4:30. And so that's Wednesday, February 10th at 4:30 in the afternoon. And what we'll be doing tomorrow is just looking over, with the superintendent's guidance, the reports that have been already conducted on the building. The auditorium reports, the acoustic analysis, the statement of needs, as well as the report of the Board of Ed ad hoc committee on capital improvements. So they'll be going over that, and they'll start a discussion on creating some sort of RFP for architectural services. So that's happening tomorrow.
Thank you. Okay, report of the council chair and liaisons. I just would like to report that we did meet last week. I mentioned we met the Farmington Valley Collaborative, which Kathy and I go to, and we met with the surrounding towns and our legislators, and we had a discussion about the budget and what's to come. And we also had a discussion about heroin and how it's affecting the different towns. And in our next meeting, which is next month, we meet the first Thursday of every month, we're actually going to have some people there to talk to us about what's going on in the state specifically and in the surrounding towns. So that should be very informative. Board of Ed liaison report.
I'm going to one-up Councilor Master Batista and report that the Board of Ed is actually meeting right now.
Gotcha.
The board, they started their budget deliberations Saturday morning at 9 o'clock and deliberated throughout the day Saturday, and they continued those deliberations tonight due to the snow. It was canceled last night. So they are meeting right now as we speak, and they will continue as long as they need to go if needed tomorrow. So that's really about it right now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
UVIA.
I have nothing to report.
TPZ.
Nothing new to report.
WPCA.
WPCA is having its regular meeting tomorrow, Town Hall, 7 o'clock.
Economic Development.
Nothing.
No report.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Human Relations.
Nothing to report.
Chamber of Commerce.
The chamber will have a board meeting tomorrow, and I don't believe they have a business after hours meeting this time. So that's
Okay.
it for now.
Any other liaison reports? Okay. Report of the town manager. Can I have a motion for to accept the town manager's report?
I move to accept the report of the town manager.
I'm going to be recusing myself here because I live on High Street. I read your little summary, Paula.
Thank you for our little notes, Paula, too. It's helpful. Kathy?
You received my written report on High Street and the PowerPoint presentation. Just in summary, as you know, that the town's Traffic Review Board in late May, received a petition by the residents of High Street requesting that the street be converted to a cul-de-sac. The residents cited increasing traffic, high rates of speed, fears of potential changing traffic patterns associated with the upcoming state work as a motivating factor. The Town Traffic Review Board, which is a staff-level working group, has been evaluating this petition, and it deemed prudent to hire a consultant to look at the overall traffic patterns in the entire village. So that is what the consultant has been working on for the last few months, and also the Traffic Review Board. On January 28th, the town's Traffic Review Board and the town's consultant, Fuss & O'Neill, presented the findings of the study as well as any potential short and long-term recommendations to improve traffic in Farmington Village. Approximately 30 residents attended the meeting. The consultant's study concluded that due to the existing levels of congestion, the area roadway network cannot support closing High Street or converting it to a one-way road. However, alternative improvements for the area were discussed. The Traffic Review Board has recommended to me some action items and some next steps, which I'll just summarize. In short term, they said that the town should petition the state to remove a no right turn on red signage for northbound on Route 10. That's like coming from Miss Porter's and taking a right to the highway. They also said to petition the state to reevaluate the signal timing along Farmington Avenue to increase efficiency. They said that the lights really need to be looked at all along on Route 4. They'd like to see us increase police presence and enforcement on all the local roads, and also utilize your speed is signage. For the long term, the Traffic Review Board has requested to the Connecticut DOT to reinstate certain components of State Project 51260, including extending the northbound right turn lane storage area and installing an additional southbound turning lane. They also said to evaluate the feasibility and potential funding opportunities for an additional river crossing. Ongoing, they said to continue to monitor traffic patterns in the village throughout the duration of the state upcoming roadway project, and upon completion of the state project, evaluate what, if any, permanent traffic calming measures may be incorporated. This will include an evaluation of townwide traffic calming. The town has already begun advancing and the recommendations from the consultant's report. Moreover, I think it's important to note that the recommendations are consistent with the new proposed goals that are proposed to be added to the strategic plan. That is the working with the state of Connecticut, which I'm calling phase 2 of the original project, to continue to evaluate the potential of an additional river crossing. And third, that the police department work towards creating a separate traffic unit in Farmington to increase enforcement and work with the community. So in general, I think that the town's worked diligently over the last 9 months to investigate and find solutions to residents' concerns around High Street. While staff is constantly engaged in traffic concerns throughout the town, the cul-de-sac petition was beneficial in a positive collaboration process between the town and all parties. The level of civic engagement in this process was notable. At sometimes the case, the residents' requests cannot be specifically accommodated. Closing High Street to create a cul-de-sac would significantly impact Route 4 and Route 10 intersection. Nevertheless, there is work to be done that can make changes that are not only for the residents of High Street and other village streets, but also for cars passing through the area. There's still quite a bit of work to be done, but the findings of the study are aligned with the new proposed goals of the strategic plan, and the staff will continue to move forward in this process. I'll continue to update you based on our goals on a quarterly fashion, and that is my report.
Thank you. Are there questions for Kathy?
Just a quick question. Kathy, on some of the like the no red turn on, red turn on right.
Yep.
Any time frame on when something like that, how long it might take to do something?
The
I'd like to say as simple as that.
The short-term ones would hopefully not be that long. Like
Okay.
being able to, we'll have to petition, and it's really helpful that we had the data that we got collected. So now the state requires that we give data and different things. So we're able to use that. So I am hopeful that our short term, like the no turn right on red, and the petition to do the timing, things of that nature, can be something that could be done relatively quickly. Even the long term, the state project, 251-260, we have that designed already, or the state has it designed, and now that we have the data, we can now submit that again to the state of Connecticut. And we have to look at other funding sources, maybe not through the state funding source, but maybe through different grants and some different things. So even the long term, I'm hopeful at this time, but we're going to have to, I'll have to give you updates, that this does not have to go back in the queue for a long process, that we can slot it in, because it's really, it could fit right in as long as we can find the funding for it. So even the long term, I'm hopeful at this time, we're not talking as the usual state long term.
Right. Okay.
Other questions? I just want to say a couple things. One, thank you, Kathy, and thank you to the Traffic Review Board and Paul Melanson for taking all of this on. And I know at one point, there were comments made that I heard out that, that Farmington, why were we doing a study? Was it really necessary? Well, I think we found out that this study was very helpful. It wasn't just High Street, it was the whole area. And the results that came from the study clearly could help the town, not just even not just the village, but really Route 4 as well. And so I really think that this was beneficial in many more ways than just the High Street. It just kind of began the process. So it really worked out to be beneficial for hopefully our traffic throughout and on Route 4. And I would like to see us, we said that when we were speaking to our legislators that we would give them some information. And if we could get this going, to get this to them right away about how we have the study itself showed that we needed to reinstate this piece of the 51-260. And as you said, maybe some grants or something, but maybe if they see this as something that it's not just part of their plan, but it was something that we know through other studies could help Farmington, maybe it would get pushed along a little more. So if we can move that on. And also, the fact that in a number of comments here, it talks about something across the river. So I'm hopeful that that's something that because it's in a study here, the state will take a look at that more seriously as well. So, and I also want to thank all the citizens in Farmington that took part in this, that began this process and that went to the Traffic Review Board. And it's great to have the participation and people that care about our town getting involved and saying what they think about what's going on. So I just want to thank everybody for that as well. So it was really a positive result for the town. So thank you. And thank you, Kathy. So, okay, anything else on her report? All those in favor of Kathy's report, say.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to let you know, I just left one thing at your places. I did respond to the gentleman who came at the last meeting for Oakland Gardens and their petition. So I just wanted to just follow up, and the letter that I responded is at your places, and he was sent out today. So I did want to let you know that I did respond to him, and I did respond to the other people that were here at the last meeting too, but I wanted to let you know about the petition and my response.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, all those in favor of Kathy's report, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Great. Appointments.
L1, Madam Chair, I move that Philip Markuska be appointed to the Plainville Area Cable TV Advisory Council for the balance of a 2-year term, beginning immediately and ending June 30th, 2016.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, thank you. Any,
Yes, I'd like to move L9, that Elizabeth Fitzsimmons be appointed to the Joint Green Efforts Committee beginning immediately for an indefinite term.
Second?
okay, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. thank you. Old business. M1.
M1, I move to take action on the following 2016 blighted building list, which includes 23 Lakeview Drive, 63 Main Street in Unionville, 700/702 New Britain Avenue, and 15 Walnut Street.
Second.
Kathy.
We discussed this at the last meeting, and under the provisions of the code, the town council has 75 days from the date of submission to approve, disapprove, or modify the list. Just one thing to note is that one property has been removed from the list since 2015, and that was 184 Talcott Notch, which had been demolished. At this time, the planning division is not proposing to add any new homes to the list.
Okay, questions on any of these properties? John?
Kathy, can you confirm that there is no one residing at 63 Main Street?
Yes, I will do that. There has not been for quite a long time, unless it's very, very recent.
Well, I've seen the owner over there a
They're
number
over
of
there
times.
doing a lot of, they're doing a lot of working. My understanding is they're still not living in the property, though.
Okay.
Yeah. But I will double check on that for you.
And just for clarity,
Yep.
if you did find that they had moved back into that property, would that require us to remove it from the blight list?
Yes.
And 23 Lakeview, it's just nothing new?
We're still in court.
Okay. And the 700-702, the fact that it's a bankruptcy, the owners filed a bankruptcy petition delaying foreclosure, does that affect anything in any way?
Not really, just it delays the process on our end. It's just a whole delay, so,
Okay.
no.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Gail? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. M2.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the attached Town of Farmington Strategic Plan Town Manager Goals.
Second.
Okay, I would like to just first say that there is a correction that's made that wasn't noted on the first part, and that, all that had to do was page 13. And that was two things that Kathy, and you'll see it's in a different color, the funding, and then committee will recommend name change. I didn't think, that wasn't any cost or any discussion that we had with Kathy, other than we seemed to all agree that those two things were fine, so I had her put those in, and just put it in a color that was denoted as, you know, so that we knew they were new. Okay? So, these are the things that we discussed and Kathy has looked into, so.
Do we need to amend to put something into the?
Yes, yes.
And that would be to continue to evaluate the potential location?
That would be one, so we
Okay,
could.
that would be one.
Yeah.
And the other one would be to reestablish the trail from the west side of Farmington Center Bridge to approximately the former Gristmill Dam.
Yeah. And then if you wanted three, each one, I thought we would do each one individually. So if we have an amendment to, so we can discuss to the first one.
You could move to amend.
Okay, I move to amend, to amend to continue to evaluate the potential and location of an additional river crossing with the State of Connecticut Department of Transportation to alleviate the town centers.
Okay. Second, I need a second.
Second.
Okay. And discussion. I just think we've seen this in a number of things, so I'm hopeful that we'll put this in our strategic plan so that it does officially become part of it, so that we can have this in our plan to talk to the state about some possibilities for the future.
Just to follow along, traffic is always the number one issue in this town. It's getting worse. With the Yukon development, it's going to get worse. You all just talked about what's going on in the village. And the traffic is not just Farmington residents. The traffic is because everyone's coming through the town of Farmington, and we need the state to help us with this problem. So I think if it's not on the list, nothing's going to get done, so I definitely think it should be on the list.
Other comments?
I agree that this is a very good idea to put this in the list. It keeps it on the radar, and it keeps us focused on it, and lets the state know that we're serious about it.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Kathy, do we have any idea what a cost would be?
It
I
would
know-
yeah, it would really just depend on, how big the bridge would be. If some people have talked about a local bridge, where the location is, because it depends on how far you have to cross over the river, so, that's part of the, I think, to evaluate some of these things, what the cost would be, where we want it to go, some just preliminary, research on this.
Do you remember what the cost was when it went for referendum?
No, because I don't think, when it went to referendum, it was just to ask if we could do it. I don't remember if there was a dollar amount on it. I may be wrong, but I remember it being more of a yes or no. So it may have had the dollar amount in it, but I think it was the yes or no.
Yeah, and I don't remember, excuse me, I don't remember either, John, the numbers.
Are there certain locations that the state would pay the 80% and certain locations they wouldn't?
No, I don't think that's, no. It's just a question of where we would want to put it. There's been a
Okay.
bunch of, we've evaluated where we had it at the last time, it was closer to Brickyard, and it was going across over there. I think the talk more recently has been closer here to the town hall and going
the high
across,
school.
like near where Apricots is in that area. It's a smaller river crossing, and the thought would be it's a more local bridge. There was always some talk of like going off on Brickyard 167 and having it like be a major bridge, but I think the thought now is being down here further, and so again, those are some of the things that we've been studying.
So that's a significant issue, and so I'm not sure who's going to pick this ball up. But when we went for referendum, it was with the idea that Brickyard Road would become Route 167. And therefore, the bridge across the river would be a state bridge, and therefore, the state would pay for the bridge,
Yeah.
as opposed to the extension of Monteith Drive across the river would be a town bridge. And there's also a significant factor there in terms of if you put it at the 167 location, or excuse me, the Brickyard Road location, there's significant amount of traffic that comes down Brickyard Road that's just looking to get out of town, southbound. To go southbound from that location, they have to go to one center or the other. And so that would have a lot of impact in terms of the volume of people who traveled on the main state roads. Monteith Drive helps us residents, get from the soccer field to the baseball field, but it doesn't help with all the people flowing through town each morning.
Right.
So, I'm not sure, again, who's going to pick up this ball and kind of run with it, but those are significant issues about the bridge.
Right, well, that's, again, and I think we stated the goal is to continue to evaluate the potential and the location, because I don't think that's been determined yet. And
No,
so
yeah.
that's, we're going to start, and Russ and his group and myself, we're going to start evaluating it. And it's never been that far from the radar. So, I mean, there's information there, and then we'll be reporting back on what our suggestions are and what the funding is, and we'll take it one step at a time.
Okay, other comments? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I'd like to amend to reestablish the trail from the west side of Farmington Center Bridge to approximately the former grist mill dam.
Second.
I spoke with Russ Arnold about this, and I also spoke to him about, I think, John, you made this suggestion of maybe having the Boy Scouts assistant, something like that, or Amy, I
Amy,
forgot,
yeah.
Amy, sorry, made this suggestion. And I think that the town, it would not be that costly or that time-consuming to just go through and kind of make the trail and then have the Boy Scouts, not clean it up, but make it more of a trail. And so I think that's a great goal, and we can include the Boy Scouts in helping us out, and we could do the heavy lifting and then have the Boy Scouts kind of polish the trail up. So I think that was, you asked me to get back to you on that.
And I think the idea, we saw the Boy Scouts here tonight, and there are a lot of boys that are going to be looking for Eagle projects.
Exactly.
And that was what was in my mind. And what a great community effort, to have them working together with us, with the community to do good things, so.
That
that'll be
trail
great.
already has a couple of Eagle projects that are, people have done bridges and things over the years. So
That's
there's
right.
already been dedication by the Boy Scouts over there.
And just so everybody knows, I mean, one of the things is, with this trail is that it's an established trail, it was just allowed to grow over. So when many of these trails, they're new, and there's a lot of locations that have to be picked and all that, that work has all been done. So I think that Russ is correct. It's not a very big project. It just has to get on the radar.
Yeah, and I think that's why, fortunately, it isn't as costly, because like you say, it was already, so it's really cleaning it up, so. Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Any
Well,
comments on the third one?
So I'd like to make a motion to investigate developing and expanding Yadkin Yadkins Park to allow for river access.
Second.
Kathy?
I did review this, and John, I took this, I paraphrased your words,
Yep.
so I hope that was okay.
That's fine.
You know, there's a couple of things with this one. One is that I did speak to Russ, and he's very concerned about the wooded area along the river there, that it holds up the riverbank. So again, you know, it's not something that he would be recommending, or would take some study to actually like clear the riverbank to have more river access. He's not recommending that for cutting trees down. If you did want to upgrade the existing area, you know, where the parking lot is and where the grass is, you could absolutely do that. That would be definitely more costly to do that type of thing. But again, the idea of kind of cutting back the riverbank, he says that it's not something, again, that they can just go in and do. They'd have to, you know, go to conservation, do some different things. So again, it's, you know, town council's, you know, choice on that. But I don't think it's not something that, again, like the one before, that we could just go in and do.
Comments?
My one comment is, just for the safety aspect of it down there, I mean, we've all seen that river be a trickle there, and then all of a sudden, over a flash storm or something like that, become pretty intense down there with some serious currents down there. That was my one concern about that whole area, even when we discussed it a couple of years ago, is that I just think it might be a magnet for kids down there sometimes, and they might get themselves in trouble in a real hurry down there. That's one thing that I've always been concerned about, that area. I've seen that part of the, we were down there doing evacuations when we had those massive rainstorms, and the water flowing through there was just absolutely incredible how it was flowing through there. And we've all seen it down there even after heavy rainstorms. And that's one thing I'm very concerned about, is that, granted, we all want access to the river, but just that area there, if we just make it more accessible, I'm just concerned that kids could get themselves in trouble down there.
So I understand the concern, but I find it ironic that we've already put 2 handicap fishing piers right next to the river that we'd have the same concern with.
I don't disagree with you, John.
And so, you know, one of the features of our town, which people like, is our river. And it was amazing, as sort of a side note of the discussions about the Charles House apartments, there was a lot of support for the plan to move forward because they were offering public access to the riverbank, which people did not have before. And that was, the residents felt that was a positive aspect of that project. And so I think that when they put the picnic area down at Yadkins Park, people thought it was a good idea to provide access. So I don't think that it's any more dangerous to sit on old benches than it is to sit on new benches.
Well,
we provide a parking lot for
I don't disagree with you. That's how I feel. I just feel that that whole area there is covered by, it's shrouded from the road, and no one could see down there. And if someone got in a jam down there, it's not going to be good. Granted, those other areas might have the same conditions, but there might be more visibility down there where, I don't want to speculate or anything, but just a cry for help might go unnoticed there versus maybe somewhere closer to downtown Unionville. That's my only concern, John.
So you would want to, instead of expanding, you want to contract it? You want to take the benches out so they don't attract people?
No, I'm not going to, that's all my concern is right now. I'm not going to contract or subtract.
So I just think it's a shame that we have a park like that has river access, which is something that people are asking for, and we provide little bits of access, and then we poorly maintain it.
A concern I have is what you said about Russ saying that if the trees are taken, if it is start to clear, then the bank's gonna go. So to me, it sounds like more will have to be done, whether, and I'm not an engineer, I don't know what it is, but to make the bank be whole and stay there. So whether, if they have to build it up, it sounds like it's a much more costly endeavor than like we just said at the river, you know, which is very valid to clean that up and fix the trail. But to me, and I absolutely want access to the river. I do, and I think that's why with Charles House, that's a great idea. With the area that I'm concerned about that area as well, just the way they've talked about the river going down there, but also what we're doing there and it falling into the river.
Yeah,
That's a concern I have with.
And I certainly wouldn't support, if Russ came back and said, look, you can't remove those trees because they're going to, I wouldn't support removing those trees. So
Well, I think that's what Kathy's saying.
what I think this is talking about is to investigating the developing and expanding Yadkins Park. So if we do that investigation, and indeed there are trees there that can't be taken down, we don't want to take them down. And I understand what Russ is saying, but I also know from personal observation and walking the property that much of the area, it just you can't walk between the trees because there's too much brush that have been allowed to grow up. So it's not a matter of taking trees down, it's just a matter of clearing the areas around. And again, if we investigate it and decide that it can't be expanded, we won't.
Well, what other discussion did you have, Kathy, about it? Any?
Well, I mean, I guess
mean,
my thing is that basically I think Russ has done some level of investigation.
That's what it
and
sounds like.
And I don't think that, you know, about clearing it and things of that nature, you know, I don't think we can just go in and clear cut it because of the environment and the erosion. So we'd have to do that. So I think that's one of the things that it does have river access to it. And I think the point more so is that we really don't maintain the park that's already there. There's nice benches, there's nice everything. Now, again, that's a policy decision where, again, where are we heading, that there's probably other areas and other open space or other parks or other playgrounds or other benches that need to be maintained or put in the capital budget. This one we can do, but we don't have the funding to do it, so you guys would have to talk about putting money in to fix the parking lot out, make the benches, make it nice, clean it up, which is all something that's very worthwhile, but it's just a policy if that's what you want us to be spending our time on and doing that, making this our project. And that's, again, it's not simple. It's not overly complicated, but it's going to cost money, and it's not something we're just going to do.
Is there anything wrong with just doing some basic analysis? It sounds like what John is proposing is just investigating a little bit further. And what we know from many encounters with the public and the poll is that people really, and Nancy, I think you and I agree, people love that we have this river.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes people feel like we don't fully utilize it. And sometimes coming to the town, I've had people ask me, well, how do you access the river? So I think maybe it wouldn't hurt to further analyze this, see what we can do to the park, see what the cost would be, as well as see if there are any other locations along the river that might be a place where we could better utilize the river. Because I think we can utilize the river a lot more, and I don't know if we've ever really dove into that.
I think what makes me wary of that is just, you know, when we look at Russ and when we look at what's going on in our engineering department, when we look at how many goals we already have, we're saturated with goals. We're over the top. The guy is barely treading water with the goals that are already in here. So I'm just not sure now's the time to pile on, bearing down on a state budget climate. You know, the state is bankrupt. We don't know what's going to happen to our aid. And just even in terms of our own staff, I'm not sure we have the capacity to continue to expand in new directions until we get a handle on some of the stuff that's already in here.
But this, to some extent, is just like, I mean, the bridge is not going to happen tomorrow, but by putting it on the list, we're saying the river is important, river access is really important, we care about it, look into it. We're not asking anyone to spend $1. And, you know, even with our open space acquisitions, over and over, this council always goes for open space along the river because our town has told us that that river is valuable and we really care, we want to use it. I don't think anyone's looking to spend $1. It's just, if it's put on the list and at some point it could be a focal, a small focal point and things can be reported back to us, there's really no harm.
Russ's time is dollars, though, because eventually we're going to get Kathy saying, I need another person. I need an engineer because Russ has too much on his plate. I think it's directly dollars.
But I think this is something that the town of Farmington has actually said they care about. And even with respect to the park, I don't even think anyone knows what we're asking for. It's just saying, we have a park that we're not taking care of. Let's look at what we can do. Maybe the evaluation will be that we scale it back. But, this is why we have Russ. And this is an area of town that people actually really care about. That I don't think I've ever come across anyone in Farmington where the river and river access wasn't relevant, so.
And I think we do a lot for that. So personally, right now, I think that, and I think that's, looking into the second one that we put on, is clearly looking and listening about river access. So we clearly are, or for me, I wouldn't have done this. This is what we want to do for river access. But right now, it's nominal as far as dollars are concerned. And I associate dollars with Russ's time. So to me, this is a much bigger project that it is going to take time and money, and I don't think right now, I'm not right now I don't think it's something that we should be putting on, so.
And again, it's picking out one.
Right.
When there are dozens. Why elevate one? I don't know.
No, elevate. Why have a
Because
park
you have
and
to
not
start.
maintain
Any other
it?
comments?
You have to start.
Anything else? Any other new comments?
I guess I would just, one of the concerns I had was safety as well. I spoke with somebody recently who had mentioned that. So it just seems to me like there's a lot more issues than with this one. I'm not sure that it needs to be in the strategic plan, quite frankly, but I'd be concerned about the brush and the bank eroding. I did look at the property, and John is right, it's definitely overgrown, but I don't know what's down there. And like Peter said earlier, I'm not sure that we really want to open access to that part. It is a wild part of the river. So at any rate, I think it's a bit much.
Any other
Just all
comments?
due respect, if we have an issue with safety and a park there, then I think as a town, we should be paying attention. If we really think this is a dangerous part of town and we shouldn't be drawing people to this area of town, I think we're opening up a different can of worms.
The area, what we're talking about here is opening up access to make it to a dangerous part. Right now, it's completely closed off.
No, it's not.
No, we have a park, there's a park there.
It's opened up. It's just.
To an
only
area
one
of the
section
river
that's opened
that
up.
you're
The
saying
rest
is
of it
not
isn't.
safe.
Well,
Okay, any other new discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
nay.
Abstentions? Okay. Paula, you have the,
Is it 2-5?
yes. So now we have a strategic plan that, before us that we have to vote on, correct?
The motion's on
The
the
motion for the, right. Any other additions or corrections? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Next, we have the recreation policy.
I move to approve the attached Town of Farmington recreation policy.
Second.
Kathy?
We reviewed this at the last meeting. As you know, the purpose of this policy is to provide guidelines for funding of recreation in the town of Farmington. This policy is tied to the town's strategic plan, Town Manager Goal 26 and 27. In summary, I've made some changes based on comments at the last meeting, and those changes are in red on the draft policy. It states that the town of Farmington is committed to providing funding exceptional town-wide recreation programs. The town of Farmington also strives to manage programs and services in accordance with industry best practices, including strong financial policies. The funding policy strengthens all recreation programs, including the Westwoods Golf Course, and brings Farmington better in line with industry practices. Under the following policy, the general fund will now support overhead and maintenance expenses of all recreation programs. These changes are in line with citizen sentiment and recreation best practices, and will allow the town to enhance all recreation programs, better support long-term capital expenses, and maintain competitive user fees.
Okay, are there any questions on this? John?
So, help me with this.
Okay.
So, basically what you're doing is taking the infrastructure of recreation and funding that in a general fund,
Yes,
whereas today, some of it's in the general fund, some of it's not.
correct.
This would move all the infrastructure costs, and when I say infrastructure, I mean staff as well.
Yep, overhead.
Right.
Yep.
But you're having a recreation fund that's to be used for a particular program. So if you have a karate program, the karate instructor gets paid out of the recreation fund, but of course the building that houses the karate would be maintained through the general fund.
Correct.
All right. So the people who pay money to do karate, are we making those fees just to pay for the cost of the karate instructor?
Yep.
So none of that money that they pay for karate goes to the general fund?
Correct.
And that's just, okay. Now, this fund balance,
Yep.
so if you were charging people money to take karate,
Yep.
and it's gonna cost $100, but you collected from all these people $110.
Yep.
You take $10, you wouldn't give it back to them, you would put that leave it in the recreation fund.
Correct, except that not every recreation program makes money. And so some of that extra fee
That's right.
would be for the community band program down at in the Unionville Village. You know,
Right.
we use recreation funds
Yep.
to pay for that.
Yeah, so, but that fund, the user fees would flow into that fund, and then the programs would be paid for out of that fund.
Yes,
And if at the end of the year it had extra money in it,
yes,
we would hold on to that money
yes,
unless it exceeded 8%.
correct.
And then if it got to a point where we were holding 9%,
Yep,
we would take that 1%, put it into the general fund, into the fund balance, and we would hold the 8% in the recreation fund.
the thought is that we wouldn't put it into the general fund in the fund balance. We'd use it as an O. You know, when we do the capital budget, we'd
Okay.
help supplement capital projects in recreation. So you'd get it, you'd be taken out of the rec
Okay.
fund, and it would go into the capital budget as an O, and it would help supplement capital funds, capital projects.
So the 8% though,
Yep.
would it be allowed to grow organically? Or would we charge extra high the first year?
No, it would grow by itself.
Okay, so the first year, if we absolutely hit the nail on the head, it was an even Steven.
Right.
There would be nothing left in the
Right.
recreation fund.
Exactly.
Next year, if 1% was over,
Yep.
it would go in.
Right.
And if the year after it was 1% less, it would go back to zero again.
Right,
We'd sort of flux back and
Yes,
forth.
exactly.
All right.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, N1, to amend,
I move to amend the Chapter 176 taxation of the Farmington Town Code as attached.
Second.
You have the ordinances and the changes that are in red. I think they're in red. Yeah, red, strike through, and add additions.
questions? John?
So, I agree with these changes. This is, helpful to the elderly, and now that we're able to, we're helping our veterans, so that's all fine. My question is, and I'm looking at, towards the end of the policy, the calculation of the freeze benefit, all these dates are changing.
Yes.
What is,
That, my understanding, and Joe will correct me, is actually how we've been doing how it's been implemented.
okay.
Yeah, it's, again, we have the new assessor, and we've been going through all our policies, and when she went through it, she saw all the dates, and
All right.
so that's how we've been doing it, so we're just codifying
So we're
it.
making that change in addition to these other improvements?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So it's kind of cleaning it up as well as,
Exactly.
okay. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Item N2, I move to amend Chapter 83 Building Construction of the Town Code as attached.
Second.
So you have it behind you in the red is what we discussed about withholding the building permits due to delinquent taxes and charges.
Any questions?
I just
Amy?
have an enforcement question. If someone sort of ignores the permit process and goes about doing what they want to do without getting the electric permit or something and the like, what power do we have to stop them?
As a building official?
Yeah.
Joe, would you know? I mean, again,
Yeah, actually, the enforcement of it could come at any time, somebody could turn them in.
Right.
And we actually, the last time we amended the ordinance for the building code, last summer, we actually put a penalty in there for that.
Yeah.
So, the building official could go out, could penalize them, they'd have to get the building permit, the value of that, plus the penalty for not getting the building permit originally.
Okay. No, I mean, I think this is a fantastic idea. I just know that there is an issue within the town that people don't get their permits anyway. So I was just wondering if there was any extra layer of enforcement.
Just what I just mentioned, we have the.
Yeah, so it's the same concept.
The one time, and actually this is a situation that's occurred right now, when you can't get caught with that without a building permit, you do a lot of work to your house, you don't get a building permit, you try to sell your house.
Welcome to my world.
Right.
That's what I do full time.
So they then have to come back and get the building permit, get the inspection, they get the penalty. And we actually have a situation now where somebody's applying for the building permit, also has back taxes.
Oh, okay.
So this ordinance is not going to go into effect in time to impact them. We have to issue them the building permit because we don't have this ordinance in place. But going forward, this would be very helpful for that also.
Because almost nowadays, the world has changed so much that it's almost impossible to close if you don't have valid and close permits, even on things you should have gotten a permit for. I was just curious what kind of enforcement this is going to have. And then I guess my other question is, how are the two departments going to talk to each other? Like if someone applies for a permit, is it immediately going to come up on the computer that someone, the logistical piece of it?
In a great world, that would happen. It's going to simply be, when they go to get a building permit, they submit the application. They're going to be directed to go to the tax office and get it, and just verify they don't have taxes due. If they do have taxes due, the tax collector will notify the building official.
It'll be like a sign-off.
A sign-off
thing.
Okay.
As I'm reading this, it's only delinquency about the property that they're looking to get the permit on.
Right.
Yes.
So if I own 5 buildings and I owe taxes on all of them, I could pay off just the one I wanted the permit.
Yeah, I think that's how it
All right.
works.
Other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? N3.
I move to recommend the purchase of the properties owned by October 24 Inc., located at 8885 Southridge Road, Lot 7, and 8809 Lot 6A and B, Settlement Road, approximately 107.1 acres, to the Town Planning and Zoning Commission for a report under Section 8-24 of the Connecticut State Statutes for the purchase price of $1,225,000.
Second.
This is going just for an 8-24, and then it will be back at the next council meeting for a recommendation to purchase. And, and I was just going to say that Liz did mention today that we did get our grant in, so the timing was perfect, so we did get the grant in for it.
Great.
Just one quick question. Doug Pelham had mentioned a possible easement to the land trust.
Yep.
Is there anything from a procedural or logistical stance do we need to deal with that before we vote, or is that a completely different?
I think that's a completely different thing, but I just got the letter, but I'll verify that before the next meeting. But I think that that's something procedurally that we can do at another time.
And would that have any impact at all on the grant?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I just want to say one thing is that, as chairperson of the land acquisition, a lot of people worked on this behind the scenes. I'd like to thank the Farmington Conservation people, the Land Trust. John Vivert wasn't mentioned. He's been on land acquisition for quite some time, so he was involved with this heavily at a lot of points. So I just want to say a lot of people did a lot of work to make this work, and hopefully it all works out for the town of Farmington.
Thanks, Peter.
And I'd like to just add, Bill Wadsworth did an amazing job negotiating this sale.
Yeah.
So, the work that he does behind the scenes with those negotiations is extremely valuable. And, this is just one project where that value shines.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
We're lucky to have all of you working for us. Anything else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
And 4, I move to award bid number 233, Unionville Sidewalk Replacement, including alternates number 1 and 2, to Griera Construction, Inc., bidder number 8 of Oxford, Connecticut, at a contract price of $378,695.
Second.
The purpose of this bid is to award a contract for the replacement of sidewalks on Plainville Avenue, Route 177, from Depot Place to West District Road. And as you remember, that this is funded 100% through our Main Street grant. So it came in with a good price, and it's funded 100%.
I just have a question. As I started to look through, and I think I know, it's the total bid package, correct?
Correct.
I mean, that's where you get the final thing, because some of them were up and down,
Yeah, it's the total
but it's the
added,
total
yeah.
bid
Yep.
package.
Yep.
And do you keep track of, as we do in all of this stuff, Joe, any add-ons and things with different companies, like who may, after the fact, do those kinds of things, so you know what companies, if people submit bids in certain ways and then we have them here, if it's, what the end bid is realistic, do you know what I'm saying, is realistic, or if there's,
I'm not sure what you're asking. Are you asking if somebody bids on a project,
Yep.
we retain them for future bids? We do that. If we have a similar type bid come along, anybody, like, for example, there's 11 bidders on this one. If we have a similar type of bid come along in the future, we'll send bid packages inviting those bidders to bid
Oh.
on that bid package.
okay.
So even though they may not win this one, they have an opportunity again to bid on another project.
Mm-hmm. Great,
So I'm not sure if that's what you're asking.
okay, thank you. Other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
And 5, I move to ratify the tentative collective bargaining agreement between the Town of Farmington and Local 331, International Brotherhood of Police Officers, for the period of July 1st, 2015 through June 30th, 2018.
Second.
This is our police union, and it would be for a 3-year contract from July 15 to June 2018. The highlights include various language changes that have no net cost but are favorable to the town. There's significant health insurance plan design changes, including increased co-pays for office visits and prescription drugs, new and additional co-pays for certain medical procedures, health insurance premium sharing increases, and modest increases in lieu of health insurance. There's a significant change to the retiree health insurance with the addition of employee contribution to partially fund the town's post-employment benefit obligation. There's 3 years' wages, and at the end of the 3-year contractual period, the overall cost of the contract is approximately $190,000, which is 1.83% per year. Just a couple of things is that the town continually takes steps to address long-term liability cost in our collective bargaining agreements. The previous contract addressed the long-term liability associated with pension benefits. This year, the proposed agreement again makes significant changes to employee benefits, this time in the area of health insurance. The plan design changes to the health insurance works towards reducing the town's annual health insurance cost. More significant, though, is the implementation of the employee's contribution to offset the long-term liability for retiree health insurance. This is a major change in benefits philosophy for the town. The police union is the first group to implement this type of contribution. So I think with the wage adjustments over the 3 years and with the changes to the benefits and especially the liability, this is a very fair contract to the town of Farmington. It enables us to be competitive with other towns, be able to hire very good police officers at competitive wages, and also keep our overall cost, like I said, to the contract at 1.83% per year, which is our target range.
How many policemen are there now?
I think there's 45 sworn officers, give or take, 44, 45.
That's including the chief and the captain.
And yes, chief and captain.
Oh, okay, thanks. Any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
And 6, I move to ratify the tentative collective bargaining agreements, supervisor and non-supervisor, between the Town of Farmington and Local 2001 CSEA-SEIU for the period of July 1st, 2015 through July 30th, 2017.
Second.
This motion covers both our supervisors and non-supervisors collective bargaining agreements. This unit represents our higher level managers. The contract essentially covers their basic working conditions of the unit. It is for a 2% cost of living adjustment for each year. So that the contract cost is $42,000 or 2% each year. So very basic, very limited changes. There are some increases in the co-pays and some language changes. But these are our high-level managers, and it's just really a basic working conditions.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
All right, and 7, I move to set a public hearing on March 8th, 2016 at 7:00 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers on the Town Manager's 2016-2017 recommended budget.
Second.
This is our public hearing on my budget on March 8th, and then underneath you see our schedule for our budget workshop sessions, which is usually, they start the next day, Wednesday, with the Board of Ed on March 9th, and then it goes Thursday, and then Saturday, and then we meet on Monday or Tuesday if needed.
And when you hand out the budget, that has what the process, who we see when?
That will be in the agenda.
In the agenda, yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. 8.
All right, and 8, I'm actually going to take these one at a time so we can have a separate discussion on each, if that's okay. I move to set a budget target range from 2.75% to 3.25% increase for the Town of Farmington's budget.
Second.
Discussion.
Could you repeat those numbers?
Yes, the increase in percentage over current year budget is 2.75 to 3.25, that's a range.
On the town side.
On the town side only, and I should clarify that that increase is independent of any additional expenditure increase that would occur with the movement of the Westwoods funds. Does that make sense? So when we, based on the policy we just passed, move the overhead and maintenance of the rec, that could add an additional expenditure. That, whatever that would be on top of this, not included in this, if that makes sense. Did I say that right?
Yep, that makes
Does
sense to me.
you?
Yes,
Okay.
it does.
Any other, and saying that on top of whatever, we don't know how that's really going to affect things yet until you come forward with your budget to us, if it's going to affect any other pieces of the budget. So that's something we'll have to take up when we see it. Any questions or comments about that?
I think it seems like a reasonable range. Looking at the history of the budget over the last 5 to 10 years, this is a reasonable range. So I support it.
Kathy, what's your estimate of the cost of maintaining all of our current services from the town?
I would say that you're probably close to 3%, give or take.
Right.
You're close to 3%, maybe like I said, depending on any kind of I wouldn't even call expansion of services, but really funding accounts appropriately and, things that we've talked about, we're probably closer to the 3% mark. We're going a little higher than 3% if we're starting to expand some services, which I think these goals do. So I think that this range would be, I think is a good starting point, definitely, that I could work with.
So I don't have any problem supporting this target. But I would say that during the budget process, I'd like to make sure we know what are new items and what are old items. And it could get a little confusing this year because we're moving things from the rec funds over to the general funds, but.
That will be all one separate account, like one page, the majority of it, So that will be easy to do, but I will try, which I usually do, to that any kind of new service or increase will be highlighted.
And with that said, Kathy, just to kind of go along with John, the other thing that when you go through your budget, there are some things that just increase.
Right.
Whether it be like fuel or whatever. And just to, as you go, you explain that all to us as, why there's an increase. And so just to continue that, as well.
Okay, yep, I'll do that, and like I said, we'll try to, obviously try to meet what the goals are, and I'll be highlighting what any new expansions are, and also to move forward with progress. So, that works for me.
Okay, and certainly we know that all kinds of things are going to come in, the grand list numbers, the state numbers, and hopefully it'll be positive, so. Okay, any other comments? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Okay, second target for the Board of Ed, I move to,
I want to take a break.
Okay, sure.
And, okay, so we're on to our next motion.
As I was saying, I move to set a budget target range from 2.75 to 3.5% increase over the current budget for the Board of Education.
Second.
Okay, discussion.
I'll give the same
Go ahead.
discussion or the same comments that I made for the town council. Looking at recent history, that seems like a very fair budget range. Then it actually seems like it's a bit higher than what recent history has shown. So this is a range I can support.
And it's 2.75 to 3.5.
Correct.
Correct. So I can't support a range without knowing what the cost of the Board of Education is with no increases in services. And I don't know what that answer is. It was easy to get an answer from Kathy on the town side. On the Board of Education, we don't have that answer. Right. And I certainly wouldn't support cutting back on services if that was necessary at 3.5. So setting this arbitrary range, in my mind, doesn't help.
Comments? I would support this in that when we have the discussion with the Board of Ed, that question should be asked. And I will absolutely listen to that and see where they're going with services, current services, and what that means. So that's something that I do want to hear about. But I do think that looking at the averages for the last, and that's really where I went with the town as well, with the town manager's budget and with the Board of Ed budget, was to look at the averages over time. And actually 3.5 is higher than the average of 3.19 of our last 5 years. So I think that's a range, a good range, and I look to hear from the board about their budget.
Kathy, has
Any other
anyone
com-
had that conversation with the Board of Ed, or anyone from the Board of Ed, as to what numbers would basically maintain what we currently have?
No, I wouldn't, no.
So And I do think that there's still, as I said, for the whole budget, for Kathy's budget as a whole, we need to think about the grand list that comes in state monies, and that's going to be a piece for all the budgets. But I feel this is reasonable for the Board of Education, looking at the averages over time. Any other comments? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
6-1, is that, I'm... Hold the, okay.
Opposed.
Opposed?
Aye.
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 Okay. Number 9.
I move to approve the following property tax refunds as shown on agenda item N9.
Second.
Any questions? John?
Who is Quit Your Job LLC?
A business.
Quit Your Day LLC.
Quit Your Day LLC.
I don't know.
Must be ahead
But
of
they
the
made
game.
an overpayment.
Okay. We'll get that info. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, I'd like a motion to move to executive session.
I move to adjourn to executive session to discuss matters concerning the sale or acquisition of real property, and that attendance in the executive session shall be limited to members of the town council and the town manager. Do we need the finance director in there as well?
No.
Or no? No, at 9:51 PM.
Second.
Okay.
Aye.
All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions?